Hey everybody, welcome to Meet the Expert webinar series designed for Google Workspace IT admins. I'm Alan, I'm a technical solutions engineer based out of Austin, Texas. This is the second session of the admin webinar series for Google Workspace. This session will be recorded and available for on-demand viewing after its conclusion. Today I'm here with my colleague and co-host Ravel, who you can see above me, who is going to introduce this webinar's format.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ravel. I'm a technical solutions engineer in New York. This session is for people who want to set up a new workspace account with their own domain. Today, we'll spend about 10 to 15 minutes presenting a demo, and the second half is for Q&A. We'll both be answering some of the questions we received from the question forum. If you haven't done so, please submit your questions now and be selected for the Q&A session. You can find the link on the screen or click on the link in the video description. Now let's look at our agenda. We'll cover creating a new Google Workspace account with your own domain. If you do not already have a domain, rewatch the previous session to see how to purchase a domain through Google Workspace. That session also covered your free trial and Google Workspace subscriptions. If you already own a domain, keep watching to see how to set up your Workspace account with your own domain. We'll also show you two ways to protect your domain and set up Gmail: manual with TXT and MX records, and automatically using Google Workspace Setup Tool. At the end, we'll have the Q&A session. Remember to submit your questions using the form. Now I'll hand it over to Alan.
Awesome. Thanks, Ravel. So when you bring your own domain to Google Workspace, there's two main ways to protect it. I'll demonstrate the first workflow, which is manual, by adding TXT records in the DNS settings of your registrar. And then afterwards, I will manually set up Gmail by adding MX records to your domain registrar's DNS settings as well. After that, Ravel is going to show you how to do this process automatically and a lot faster using the Google Workspace setup tool. Google Workspace offers automatic domain verification for many popular domain registrars. We'll show you both methods with a domain registered through Cloudflare. Cloudflare is just one of many registrars that Google Workspace partners with to make domain verification easier for new Workspace admins. And with that, let's get into our demonstration. All right, so I pre-recorded this video mainly because there's a few processes that take some time, between 1 and 10 minutes, and I didn't want to waste your guys' time. So during those delays, I cut the video and it jumps straight to the end, straight to the verified state. As we play the demo, we'll explain each step live for you. Let's get started. As another quick note, this process works for any domain registrar that you own, but let's assume today that you're working with Cloudflare. We're just using this as an example today. You can use any registrar you use. If you don't already have a domain, go ahead and watch last week's session's video to see how to buy one through Google Workspace. The link is in the video's description. All right, so the first thing you're going to want to do is head over to Cloudflare's website. Let's search for a domain to purchase. In this case, we'll just use admin console webinar testdomain2.com. Go ahead and purchase that. We can go ahead with the free version for now. We don't need any Cloudflare protections. Fill out your billing and contact and address information. Go ahead and click on Confirm Payment. Let Cloudflare do some magic behind the scenes. They're going to confirm our payment and create and register our domain. And once we've done that, congratulations, you now own a domain name. So next, you're going to want to head over to Google Workspace Get Started page to set up your Google Workspace account. So click on Get Started. Type in your business's name. In this case, we'll just use the domain purchased minus the .com edition. It's just Ravel and myself in this new startup, so just 2 to 9 employees. type in your contact information, first name, last name, and current email address. And as we just purchased this domain, we're going to select the "Yes, I have one I can use" option. Type in that domain name, click on Next. And we do want to set up our account with this domain, so click on Next again. And if you would like to educate your users with some really helpful and handy Google Workspace emails, click on OK. Now it's time to set up your super admin account. So the pre-populated one is just me@domainname.com. Figure out how to solve this puzzle. Click on Agree and Continue. And just like that, your super admin account has been set up. Now it's time to set up your admin console. So click on Continue to Set Up. It'll take you to the admin console dashboard. Click on Next. A couple prompts will pop up. Give those careful thought and consideration, and then close them out. So there's three main steps to configure your new admin console. The first step is protecting your domain and verifying ownership. The second step is creating new users. We're not going to go through that today because the topic of this session is strictly domain related. And then the third step is activating Gmail for your new domain. So let's go ahead and protect your domain using manual verification. So click on Protect. Click on I'm ready to protect my domain. And then we're going to click on Switch Verification Method. So as you see on the right-hand side, there's a button that says Sign in to verify. That's the automatic and much easier way to go through this process. Ravel is going to go through that once I hop off. So click on Create a TXT record. Click on Next. And now we're going to want to return to our Cloudflare dashboard that we just visited. So open up Cloudflare to the side, go to the DNS pane, and now we're going to add some important records. In order to verify domain ownership, we actually only need to add one record, a TXT record, which Google Workspace will provide for you. So go ahead and click on Add Record, scroll down to TXT. We're going to use et for root, for name. TTL remains the default auto value, and then copy paste the TXT value over into the content section. Click on Save. Return to the admin console and click on Protect Domain. So when you click on Protect Domain, essentially Google is contacting Cloudflare or whichever registrar you're choosing to use. They're saying, hey, we have this record. Do you have this record? And if Cloudflare or whatever registrar you use also has that record, then that proves domain ownership. Goes through the process, and you're greeted with this verification screen. Now, this verification process can take anywhere between 1 and 10 minutes. It's going to take a few seconds right now because I cut the video. Now, that's it. Your domain has been verified. The next step is going to be setting up mail. Step 3. We're going to skip step 2 for now. So click Activate. Click I'm ready to activate Gmail. Scroll down to the other verification method and click on Manual Activation. And this is very similar to the previous process that we just completed. We're going to be adding some more records. So this time we're going to be adding MX records. MX records are typically used when configuring mail. TXT records are used for verifying domain ownership. CNAME records can be used for domain forwarding if you have like a secondary domain and you want that domain to be routed to your primary domain. In this case, we're concerned with MX records. So go ahead and copy over those MX record values from the admin console to your registrar's DNS page. Be sure you get the priorities correct. We've seen plenty of support cases in which customers don't get they don't copy paste it over correctly. That leads to trouble. So make sure you copy that stuff as closely as possible. And now once you've added all those records, the exact same thing as before happens where Google says, we've got all these MX records. Do you have these MX records? And the domain registrar says, yeah, we do. And that allows for mail to flow through that domain. And just like that, click on Finish. As I mentioned, we're going to skip step 2 for now. And that brings us to your configured admin console. So you've seen the manual way to verify domain ownership and set up mail records, set up mailing using the Google Workspace setup tool. I'm now going to hand it over to my coworker, Ravel, and he's going to show you the much faster and easier way to do this process.
Thank you, Alan. As Alan mentioned, it's my turn to show you the faster way of doing both setting up your domain verification and your email records. So let's pivot to do that now using the setup tool. Similarly to Alan, I'm greeted with 3 steps of the signup process, which include protecting my domain, creating users, and activating Gmail. To protect my domain, I am also required to verify it first using the tool. So I select I'm ready to verify it. And the first thing you see here, as Alan also mentioned, is that it would recognize that I bought a domain from cloudflare.com. So to do so and to use this tool, I'll just click the link that says sign in to verify. This setup tool can simplify the manual process by having Google add these records for me on Cloudflare. It's also worth mentioning that this tool works for other registrars as well, and not just Cloudflare. To have Google add these records for me, I just select authorize on the screen. And you can see the TXT record that will be added. And just like that, our domain verification is complete. Next, I have the option to add users or create users. You can skip this for now, as it's something that I can handle later on the admin console in case Alan and I add any employees to our startup. Moving on, let's focus on setting up Gmail using the setup wizard as well. Again, very similar to domain verification, you can see that all I will need to do is click I'm ready to activate email. Again, you see that Cloudflare was identified as my domain registrar. And similarly, I'll select sign in to activate. In the manual process, you saw how complicated it was to add the required records one by one. Here you just see that we just need a few clicks to add all these records to authorize our email. I click authorize here. And just like that, we have authorized email flow. Now that we've authorized email, we are officially done with the signup process and making use of the automatic setup tool.
Very cool. So that was our demo. Hope it was extremely informative and helpful. Now let's check out some of the popular questions we received so far. I'm now going to read the first question for Ravel. Let's see. Our business name has changed. How do I change the domain name without losing any data?
Thank you, Alan. I didn't know our business name changed already, but if I had to change that, I would say we would go onto the admin console under the domains panel, and you could add your new domain, either as an alias or as a secondary, go through the verification process to set up the email, and there will be an option to switch to primary on that same panel if you had to change our business already. I do have a question for you as well. How do we add a second domain?
So this process is very similar to the previous. After you've configured your admin console and you've set up a primary domain, you can go to the domain section in the admin console, and there should be a button that says Add New Domain. And then after going through a very similar process to what you guys just saw, verifying with TXT records with the registrar that you purchased from, either, if it was us, then it's probably a little bit simpler. If it's Cloudflare, you're probably gonna have to go to their console and enter this TXT record. After you complete that verification, it'll appear in your admin console as a secondary domain. Let's see, new question. I need to create a new primary domain and use the current primary domain as an alias domain. What's the best way to make the change?
That's a good question, Alan. I hope we can talk about this before we do this. I would say that it's similar to the first question. We'll go into the admin console. We'll add the domain there, and you can select it. You can verify it again, since it will be the new primary domain. Set up the email, as you saw, and then change that over. And I believe that old domain that you had available is already an alias, since we've changed the primary.
Great.
So my question to you now, Alan, is I'm not sure who my domain registrar is. How can I look that up?
Okay. Yeah, we've seen this come up a couple times with customers who, purchased their domain a long time ago, situations like that. I would say first you might want to check your email, see if you can find any invoices, right? Because they'll be sending you probably month or annual statements. Alternatively, if you are a little more tech savvy, you can use like a DNS lookup tool. There's a number of them on Google. Just type in DNS lookup, type in your domain name, and it'll tell you which registrar is, hosting your domain. And then you can go through the account recovery process with them. On to the next question. Trying to activate my Gmail work email, but it keeps telling me my MX records don't match. What might I be doing wrong? Ravel?
I'm glad you asked me, Alan. You've kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier. There are basically two common things that I see when I answer questions like this. A lot of times our users copied an incomplete string. They might have left out the end or the beginning, or vice versa, or even actually differently. They will copy the right string into the wrong record type. So you saw in our demos, we did a TXT record to do the domain verification, MX for email. Sometimes we see them copy the wrong string and put it into the TXT for email and wonder why it's not working. So I guess those are the two most common issues that I see in that issue there. Okay, Alan, another question for you. If I enter my existing domain, will it try to co-opt my current service, change my website settings, etc.? I don't want to mess anything up or make any unintended changes.
Yeah, certainly. We wouldn't want that either. So usually when setting up a domain, right, we need to prove domain ownership. So if you have your domain set up with a different service, say like Microsoft or Amazon, you'll need to remove that TXT record before proceeding with Google's domain verification process. It's pretty hard to mess this one up as long as you go through the Google Workspace setup tool. So I would recommend checking that out. But short answer, you're not going to mess it up. Just go through the tool and it'll guide you through it. New question. What happens if my website name is already taken?
Well, if your website name is already taken and you are the rightful owner, we have an account security team that can help you, regain access or gain access to workspace services for that domain. There's a form that you can fill out and they will take you through a process, reach back out to you and work with you. Again, the process still requires for you to prove ownership. So you still have to go through the same process we demoed today, with the added step of going through a form. Okay, Alan, how do I get my email to work if I transferred my domain from a previous account?
So as you saw during my demo, And during Ravel's demo, getting email to work just requires setting up MX records correctly. So head over to the admin console, and then we will provide you with those 5 MX records of varying priority. Copy those MX records over to your domain registrar, and mail should flow properly. Question for Ravel. How do I make sure my domain name won't be taken? I already have one. I just want to make sure it's protected. Great question.
That's a great question. So obviously, the domain registrar will let you know if your domain name is already taken. If you already have one, that's indicated on this question. And Google Workspace, you find that it's already been taken. If you are the rightful owner and have access to those records, you can make changes to those records. Our account security team will work with you to determine ownership, rightful ownership, and try to restore those services or grant you those services to the right account. We have our own process to make sure that the rightful owner is using the services that they are paying for and they deserve to have.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, if you purchase your domain through, Google Workspace or Registrar, it's not going to be taken once you've purchased it. It belongs to you, and it's associated with you and your business. So as soon as you purchase it, it's yours. And should you lose access to it, we can help you through that with the account security. Our account security team can help you recover it. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it if you could provide feedback on this session. We hope it was informative. You can find the link to the form on the screen or click on the link in the video description. You'll also find some useful links in the video description that we suggest you take a look at for more details on the topics covered during this webinar.
And I want to invite you all to join the next webinar for admins to understand your billing and manage your subscriptions. It's happening on January 18th at the same time as today's session. To see the full schedule, check out Meet the Expert website in the video description. Reminder to stay healthy and to stay safe. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.